Hello, 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 Facebook. It's hot. It's hot. It's hot out here. It must be Jesus in the atmosphere. Where did I get that from? Shout out to those Mancy Broncos back in the days. But anyway, hey, it is hot. But that's what I love. Grinding. I love grinding. Walking the heat. That's where I build, you know what I'm saying? Bring it. And the heat. Can't take the heat, get out the kitchen. But in this heat, I don't get beat by the Spurs. 4 points for the NBA Finals. Why did I say that? Sorry, Heat fans, I had to squeeze that in there. Sorry. I got a personality, I gotta joke it out anyway. But anyway, I'm here to give you a message on not beating the heat. But I'm finna give you a message on the terrible story with a pretty ending, you know? The terrible story with a pretty ending, you know? And here's the thing, the problem of people and how they see the gospel of Jesus Christ, you know? They kind of see it in its traditional pattern, but I'm here to show you a better, you know, pattern of how to perceive, you know, what took place, you know, 2,000 years ago. But what, you know, the thing is, what took place, see, here's where the ending, here's the story. There was a man named Jesus Christ. He walked with his disciples. And he, you know, all of a sudden recognized and realized that, you know, his time has come for him to fulfill his purpose. And then all of a sudden, you know, he had, of course, 12 disciples with him. And he told Peter, James, and John to kind of be with him and to watch him while he prayed. And all of a sudden, you know, the Jesus Christ, you know, started praying, and all of a sudden he was praying so fiercely that blood start, you know, sweats of blood start coming from out of him. He was praying so fiercely concerning his Father, talking about, let this cup pass, let this cup pass. And then all of a sudden he got done praying. He went back to the disciples, and the disciples were sleeping. And the disciples were sleeping, you know, he told them to, you know, to watch him for an hour. You know, why would you go to sleep? Just tarry for me for 1 hour, you know. So he went back and started praying, you know, and he came back again and they still were sleeping, you know, and he told them, could you just tarry with me for 1 hour? So he went back and praying, you know what I'm saying? And he prayed and said, if it's not my will, but thy will. He said, first he said, let this cup pass. If it's not my will, but thy will shall be gone. He's accepted the will of God, you know. And he accepted the will of God, and he came back and they were still sleeping. And all of a sudden, you know, Judas, you know, and the officers, Jewish officers came and to come to arrest him. And, you know, Judas came up to Jesus and kissed him on his ear. And, you know, Jesus said, you come to betray me with a kiss, you know, and they arrested Jesus. And all of a sudden, Peter got angry and upset and tried to, you know, chop the ear off of, you know, one of the disciples, one of the officers, and he chopped the ear off of one of the officers, and, you know, Jesus healed the officer's ear. And all of a sudden, he locks Jesus up, you know, to come see Caiaphas, you know, and Caiaphas comes, sees him, and he mocks Jesus and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, Caiaphas slaps him in the, you know, cheek, you know, slapping him in the face, you know. And Caiaphas sends Jesus to Pontius Pilate, and Pilate, you know, wonder why you giving me this person, you know. He considered Jesus as some kind of heretic, crazy person that think he's king. But, you know, Caiaphas and the scribes and Pharisees was telling him that he was a threat, you know, to Caesar, you know. and he's convincing them, Pilate, didn't find no fault in this man. This man, nothing, no threat to Rome, so, all of a sudden they was like, no, we only bow to Caesar. This guy claimed to be a king. And Pontius Pilate asked Jesus, are you a king? And then Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, my kingdom is of, and then he didn't say nothing. And then Pontius Pilate asked him, I have the power to take your life, and I have the power to give you life. And then Jesus said, the only power that you have is what my Father is giving you to, take me, And, so he, tried to please the scribes and Pharisees by having him beaten and bruised. And so they beaten and bruised him 39 lashes and, on his back. And then they put a crown of thorn on his head. And they got him to tote a cross, to, Mount Calvary. And, and the people, sorry, I skipped everything. But, y'all kind of know where I'm going about this story of all these bad things are happening, All these terrible things are happening concerning this story, And it's like all this doom and gloom until, of course we know Jesus died on the cross and all kind of things took place, all kind of bad things happened. See, because now we look at the cross, how you doing? We look at the cross like, hey, it's just just a story, it's just like those other storybooks, But no, it's more than just a story. It's a reality that happened and occurred, a long time ago. And the thing is, it's a story that happened a long time ago. And it's a story that happened a long time ago. But it had bad things going on in the story, that Jesus was experiencing bad things, in these situations. But we act like when we go through bad things, oh, what's going on, Jesus? Why, or God, what's going on? Why bad things are happening in my life story? Why I have so much negative things in my life story, And we act like that our story is supposed to be all nice and all loving and dovey, but really it's not. So really supposed to be, but for some people, thank God, things wasn't so bad, in your life and stuff like that. But guess what? How many times we got to hear this story to understand that Jesus went through so many bad things, so many bad stuff. But at the end, on the third day, he rose from the dead. The happy ending, he rose in the dead with all power. All things are in his hands. How many times we got to hear that, to know, wait a minute, that, if going through all these bad things I'm going through right now, that there's going to be a happy ending in this story. I mean, how many times we got to hear this bad, terrible story and this happy ending to know that the bad things that we're going through in our life and the bad situations we're facing in our life, that there's going to be a happy ending, How many times we got to hear it? How many times that it got to get in our spirit to understand to have the hope, the blessed hope, that whatever trials and tribulation I'm going through, things going to work out right. It's going to, come to pass. How many times we got to hear this story but how many times that we can develop faith in understanding where we're at right now, that we have enough faith to, realize that where we at right now is not where we're going to stay at. It's just part of the process in making us and shaping us and molding us and making us to be made in the image and the likeness of God, which is Jesus Christ's number one mission, to give us the ability by the power of his blood to be back in the image and likeness of God. How many times we got to hear this story to know that it's going to be a great ending, that we will learn how to endure through trials and endure through tribulations, endure through bad situations, to know that there's a guaranteed happy ending right before us. How many times we got to hear the story of Jesus Christ to know that? And the thing is, that's the question of everybody, every Christian. How many times we got to hear it that we don't get worried, we don't be fret, we don't, be discouraged. We be encouraged knowing that, in spite of the situations and circumstances, that we win in the end, How many times we got to hear it to not be discouraged, to not be frustrated at the circumstances that's going on in our lives. That's the whole idea of this message. That, I could have told you the story, but you already know the story in better detail than I explained it. But guess what? He win in the end. And in spite of your situation, your bad circumstances going on in your life, in the ending, there's going to be a wonderful thing going on. But you know what God told me? So the reason why we have this problem is we have a problem with our praise, Praise problem. It will always be a praise problem. We exalted something higher than God. That's how we get strongholds. Because we exalted something higher than the imagination of the reality that actually took place in this world, and we compare it to the reality that we're going through in life. And because we see this reality so vivid in our natural, in our spirit, we forget about the story that Jesus Christ, rose from the dead. That's sad, And it's sad how, this story can be repeated so much, and we still, get doubt in our hearts. Doubt in our spirit. Oh my goodness, it's doubt, all this doubt in our life. But guess what? Jesus Christ win in the end. But the thing is, we got to get in our hearts. That's the problem. We got to get it in our souls. We have to be honest with ourselves concerning where we're at in our lives and how we put, exalted things, the things of this world, higher than God. And the thing is, we just need to understand that, God's power is more greater than anything that ever existed, known to man, known to the universe, known to everything, and start believing it in our hearts and start having faith and walk it out in our hearts, that the story of Jesus Christ and what he went through makes so much sense in our hearts, that we will believe in God through any situation, any circumstance, and any trials and tribulations that we face, that we will win in the end regardless. Regardless. You know what I'm saying? We will win in the end because we serve a God that rule and reign in victory and never had a defeat. And that's what we need to realize and understand when we understand the gospel of Jesus Christ, the never-ending story that keeps us winning, 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 and winning. All right, that's the message. I hope you got this message. I hope you understand that, the gospel is more than the story, more than anything that ever exists in the universe. It's the greatest thing in the universe, but you have to realize it for yourself in your heart. All right, God be the glory to him forever and ever. In Jesus' name, amen.